This is Jason Verney's podcast. I am Jason Verney. The London Korean Film Festival is back. That's what I'm saying. It's not actually back just yet, but it's back at the end of this year, 2018. However, just like last year, we had various teaser screenings throughout half the year, I suppose you could say, that led up to the film festival itself. And anyone who's been following the London Korean Film Festival tweets or Instagram posts or Facebook posts or just emails they get from them, or even ones from the Korean Cultural Centre, which of course is who sets this up and who it is kind of curated from. Anyone who gets those postings or posts or emails will know that the teaser screenings have begun for this year's London Korean Film Festival. Now, April was the first month, the first screening. It was a film called Be With Me. Oh, sorry, I'm getting confused here. Be With You. And that's me getting confused. Even though I saw the film, I was there it was actually a European premiere, which in itself means it's a UK premiere, of course. Pretty good film. I might not have thought about it at the time. Perhaps I wasn't in the right frame of mind. The crowd, the audience loved it, and I'll mention a bit more about that at the end of this podcast because I do want to touch on it. So, for anyone who also remembers last year, 2017's London Korean Film Festival, they'll also remember that their teaser screenings were pretty good films, and I don't think this year is going to be any exception. I think they're going to be great as well. I mean, I already know, of at least one. But last year we had A Taxi Driver, the phenomenon that is the film about Gwangju, the uprising. And I can say myself, I posted a podcast about that, and it got a hell of a lot of views or listens. I post my podcasts on YouTube and iTunes, and that one got probably the most all my podcasts got in a short amount of time anyway. Definitely on YouTube and I believe on iTunes as well. But either way, that film, A Taxi Driver, it meant a lot to me as well. Having visited Gwangju twice on my two most recent trips to Korea. In fact, I promised to go there every time I frequent Korea, which will be sometime very soon again. Basically, that film was very emotional, important, also funny, also obviously violent and very politically sort of swayed because it's a big thing in Korea, a big thing that happened in the 80s. Now, I'm going to move on to the one or two other films that we had in 2017 as the teaser screenings. We had The Villainess. That was one of the other films. We had Bluebeard, and we had a couple more. Some people said that the films were so good in the teaser screening element that they should have had maybe even equally good ones or better ones at the actual festival. Or even, because these were teasers, you could even have the films themselves play out at the festival, because people would tell people it's a good film, they'd come along, hopefully they'd see that. Well, obviously these teasers are meant to build up the momentum so people come along. Whichever thoughts there were and there are about last year's, I mean, I think they still did a great job. And also the film festival itself, when it did come around, which is always sort of October, November time, normally mostly November, I believe. Yeah, it was very good. They kind of went through to quite a few independent films, female voices films, section or thread or strand, whatever you want to call it. And also the documentary season. There was quite a few political related ones, and perhaps that wasn't long after the Park Geun-hye situation in Korea had kind of reached its peak, and maybe that was maybe the audience was ready for that, or ready to come out and see these films and not be shy. I'm talking about the Korean audience as opposed to the British audience. But hey, I'm no expert. But it was a good festival. Maybe not as massive blockbuster films in the actual festival itself as they've had in previous years. But hey, they've been going a long time and they're doing their best. But this year, we've had Be With the film I mentioned, Be With You. The next film, which is coming up in May, which is where we are now as I'm recording this. I don't know when you're listening to this, but is Memoir of a Murderer. Now, this is not to be confused with the film, there's Memories of Murder. There's also other films which have, a similar title to that. And this isn't a premiere. It's a premiere for the London Korean Film Festival, yes. But it's not actually, you can't, it's not a premiere in the UK because the BFI Film Festival, the most recent one, although that was quite a few months ago, they had it there. And it actually played at the Prince Charles Cinema. I don't think hundreds of people went to see it. I can't remember which screening it was in, which screen it was in, whether it was in the larger screen or the smaller screen. I think it was the larger screen. Excuse me. So some certain people would have seen that. It's a bit like last year they had Bamsium Pirates, the film about the indie band. That was in both festivals, although this film I'm talking about now was in last year's London Film Festival, BFI London Film Festival, but not in the London Korean Film Festival. So we've just got it, just a handful of months later, we've now got it as a teaser screening. The interesting thing to note about this, first of all, we know that quite a few people think that Korean films are all about violence. They love their violence, and that's not true at all. From the way I got into Korean films was through the melodramas, the dramas, maybe some horrors, a comedy, the romance. And the thing with Korean films, a lot of the time, whichever genre they claim to be, they also are very clever at mixing it up. So you're laughing, you're crying, you're frightened, you're mourning, you're sad. And they really, you can't always define it. But certain films like this one, this is based on a Korean, it's regarding a serial killer. So it's going to be pretty dark. The reason I said that was an important thing to note, it's it has been, I guess, such a genre has been done before, or this type of film. Of course, you're going to get similarities. Excuse my voice shaking. I just had yet another coffee. And this, this film, it's had good reviews as far as I'm aware. The actors in it, Sul Kyung-gu, he was in the Merciless, which was at last year's London Korean Film Festival. But more interestingly, or at least to me, it's based on the book by the much revered and celebrated author Kim Young-ha. Now I think he's actually been to London as well. But he's a very well-known author. He also did a very well-known TED Talk, which is out there. You should check that out. It's about his youth and about. It's a very funny and interesting and good TED Talk. But obviously, that's not what he's known for. He's known for his writing. So this film, I'll just sort of paraphrase from what the press release says. It says here about serial killers being popular figures in South Korean cinema. Their shocking tales of murder hold a tight grip on the neck of their box office. I will stop there, but that's another thing that's changed in the most recent years from what I've heard and from what I understand with people in the industry. It's they pick a genre, they really jump on that genre, whether it's horror, whether it's romance, whether it's period dramas, Joseon Dynasty dramas, and whatever, and then they move on. And I know Hollywood does that as well to a degree, and some people do worry they are going too much in the Hollywood zone. And when I say some people, I mean me a little bit, and one or two other people that I know that in the the industry, and by that I mean film industry and also the film review industry, or call them bloggers, writers, critics, whatever. It says here, in Memoir of a Murderer, as I say, very similar titles to other ones we know, one elderly killer's grasp loosens as his memory begins to fail, but a dangerous new foe is ready to take his place. And then he goes on to say that the guy that I mentioned earlier, the actor Sul Kyung-gu, was a ruthless serial killer in his youth. But he's now fallen prey to foes every bit as vicious as his younger self. He's old now, and he's got Alzheimer's. I'm not going to go into this too much. And then it talks about a new murderer appears in town. So you already know that perhaps there's two. Perhaps there's going to be some rivalry. I might have got that wrong here, but it does say before that, having long since given up his hobby of removing from society those he felt unworthy of life, the former murderer has settled into a quiet existence, looking after his daughter. That's Seol Hyun. She was in Gangland Blues, who has no knowledge of his heinous crimes. So there's a diary involved that tries to help him recall his past. Now, I don't like to give spoilers. I'm only reading what the press release says. A lot of the time I don't even read a review or read a synopsis or even watch a trailer. And hey, I'm not unique for that. I'm just saying that's what I do, but not always do. So it's this other guy comes on the scene. Now, I'm not going to mention what it says in the last paragraph of the synopsis. It does say that this film, Memoir of a Murderer, debuted in the #1 spot at the Korean box office. Its psychological twists and dark thrills promise equal appeal to UK audiences. So that's what we have in store for May's teaser screening. And I think it's an interesting choice. It's good that they're doing a bit like they did last year. They're choosing something very different and then something very different. They changed the genres. The last one was a comedy, romance, drama, love story, which, as I say, I'll mention briefly at the end of this podcast. That was the film I was talking about earlier, which was Be With You, with Song Ye-jin and others. But these teaser screenings are basically to the London Korean Film Festival. This is what they say about it. They're extending the work of the film festival and then building up to the London Korean Film Festival in the autumn. The teaser screenings showcase a diverse range of contemporary Korean cinema across the year. The screenings are scheduled to take place monthly at either Regent Street Cinema, lovely cinema, or Picture House Central in London, as well as they'll be having screenings at the Arts Picture House, Cambridge. So it's not just London. So those who... I'm just trying to think now. Was it last year they did a touring one of these teaser screenings as well? I'm not sure if they're going to venture away from Cambridge, but this is what they're doing this year. The Cambridge... The Cambridge venue is what they've chosen definitely for this film, and I'm guessing others. That's pretty much it. I'm sorry this has been a bit sort of sporadic and a bit kind of up and down and a bit, mixed, this podcast. But I just wanted to let you know the next film that's coming, also the one that did come, and that's one I'm going to touch on now. Be With You. When it started, the audience was laughing straight away, and I guess from the poster. I mean, it's Song Ye-jin, and it's going to be. It's based on I think it was based on Japanese story, manga or something, and I think there was even a film version of that. But either way, I mean, that doesn't. I do think sometimes that they may be getting a bit. They're struggling for ideas, but let's face it, Hollywood is the same. I mean, there are ideas out there, they just don't always want to take a risk. Either way, this film, I had mixed feelings, and I was maybe it's the more people laugh, the more I kind of, or the more people hyper film, the more I kind of, move away from it. But the comedy was very kind of out there, very almost felt like a family comedy, and that's why I really, as much as the character in Be With You was, you know, you're meant to basically, she had it's difficult to say now, but basically the character, she comes back into, whatever reason, she comes back to this guy's life, but she doesn't remember who she is or who she was. There's a lot more to it than that, but I was grappling with trying to have any emotion with that, and emotion with the characters and what they were going through, because it was so funny. It was funny sort of halfway through, and it was very silly humour, but it worked. And then it changes. Now, I have not, as I said earlier, lots of Korean films, that's what they do. They genre changing, but this suddenly changed. So by the time I felt, when that moment of love or yearning or, you know, connection was there, it was, I kind of couldn't forget the comedy and all the stuff that had built up to it. But I will watch it again, and I think, thinking about it, I might even do a proper review of that film. It's just, I think a lot of it depends on mood as well. When you go into a film, if you rush to get there, or if you're meeting someone before, or if you've kind of other stuff going on, you can take in a film a different way. I know it was a pretty good film. It's just that I couldn't, and I kind of, when the ending came in, there's a great little bit at the end, and I don't know if you call it a twist. There's a great bit at the end. It's just brilliant. You can't fault that ending. And it's fantastic in that way. It's just I need to watch it again I need to see it again to really appreciate it for what everyone was appreciating it for at the time. I'm not saying everyone did in there, but everyone that I could hear laughing or crying around me. So that's it. London Korean Film Festival is well underway. The actual build up to it, as I said, it happens in autumn. It very often happens not too far away from the Busan International Film Festival in Busan, of course, in South Korea. And obviously, sometimes I'm actually over there when this is happening. I'm actually in Korea with them, or sometimes I get to go to BIF, Busan International Film Festival, and then come back and catch the tail end of the London Korean Film Festival. Of course, some films will have been shown in Busan before, and sometimes even a year before, but that's, you know, there's sometimes just a few weeks because of the they've got the rights to it before it's the world premiere over in Busan or something, and then it's come over to the UK or South Korean premiere. Anyway, so I'm not going to dwell anymore. I just hope you get a chance to go along to Memoirs of a Murderer and get a chance to see Be With You. If you didn't see it then, there was a good turnout for that screening in the Picture House Central in April. And that's it. One more thing I should actually mention. Alongside this, and I have mentioned this in podcasts and if you go to my website, miniminimovie.com, you'll find some stuff that I mention, which I also mention in podcasts, and I even put the podcast in different articles or even separate written articles. But you'll also see that, for example, in that Be With You article that's on there, it's not a review, it was about the actual screening, but I did talk about people's thoughts on last year's teaser screenings and how they, you know, sorry, you don't know because I haven't said yet, but how they perhaps affected the festival itself, or how they could have been played again in the festival and what have you. But as I say, some things I've mentioned before, and one particular thing is, while these teaser screenings are going on, you also have free screenings at the Korean Cultural Centre in these separate seasons. Last year you had a good couple of screenings, fortnightly screenings usually, and the current one that's on, so this is completely separate to those teaser screenings, but these are free, you can go along. The current one that's on is the one that runs it started in March and it runs until June, sometime in June. And it's basically, they're calling it Korean Film Nights 2018 because it's taken up a quarter of the year. And it's Korean novels on screen. There's a Q&A with at least one of the screenings, and there's been some good films, good film versions of books that have been big novels in Korea. And the next one, I might as well mention this while I'm flicking at the details. The one we've just had is A Petal, original novel by Cho Yun, but this was a film directed by Jang Sun-yo from 1996. And the next, the one as I'm speaking now, the next one is The Old Garden on Thursday, 24th of May. That's Im Sang-soo. Now, someone will know his name. He's a very colourful director and he has a very particular vision. Im Sang-soo. So that was based on an original novel by Hwang Sok-yong. I might as well mention what we've got left. Actually, the film called The Unfair, obviously based on a novel as well. That's Thursday, 7th of June, and towards the end of June, 28th of June, which is one, I think that's where the Q&A may be taking place, but I can't swear to that right now. Oh yeah, there's a Q&A with the author of the original novel. That's Kim Aran, or Aran Kim. So that's the last screening of those at the end of June. And that's it. I'm going to wrap it up there. I hope you get a chance to see either of these screenings, whether they be the free ones at the Korean Cultural Centre, the teaser screenings, or both, and of course the London Korean Film Festival in 2018, later this year when it happens. Okay, that's it. I'm going to leave it there and bid you farewell. Okay, adios.